Hey guys, I'm Sparkster28 and welcome to episode 1 of my new series, Read and Rate. If you're familiar with my Creepypasta readings and my Let's Not Meet Stories readings, it's similar to those except like the title says Read and Rate. After I read the story, I'm going to rate it, give my opinion on it. And there's not going to be any music in the background either, it's just going to be me reading the story, and you're going to be seeing gameplay of course, and yeah, I'll give my thoughts on what I think of the story. I did this because it's been a while since I've done any, story readings. I wanted to keep it going. I just wanted to do something a little different, So I decided, why not give my thoughts on these stories that I read, Say what I think of them. Do I like them? Do I not like them? What I think can be improved? All that kind of stuff. So, yeah. This one will be Pokemon themed, as you can tell from the title. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first story we'll be reading is called Depressing Rescue Team Hack, and from the pictures I'm seeing, it looks like it's a creepypasta off of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, probably the first ones, Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team, so let's start this one. I'm not normally one to get emotional over games, but a recent incident has got me thinking that perhaps I should try. A while back, while searching through pawn shops for some interesting looking bootlegs or pirated games, I came across a rather funny looking cartridge simply labeled Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Now the first thing going through my mind is why the hell a pawn shop would pay any amount of money for a shit looking cartridge, but then again pawn shops would probably buy organs if they could get their hands on them. The cartridge itself intrigued me though. It was a regular Game Boy Advance cartridge aside from the paper label and some minor scratches. I've always been interested in things like Creepy Black and Lost Silver, so I honestly thought that perhaps this could be some creepy unknown Pokemon game with a ghost in it or something. I bought the crappy cartridge and returned home, grabbing my DS and shoving it into the slot. My hopes were high and getting higher as a badly glitched title screen popped up for me. This thing was already promising enough with the weird label, but now the unintelligible mess of a title screen made it even better. From what I could see, it was the standard Red Rescue Team game, but the colors of the screen were off, probably because the previous owner didn't take care of it at all. All the colors were a dull gray, and any colors that weren't gray were badly washed out and bland. I chose a new game and started with the quiz. The text in the quiz section was badly glitched. Letters were replaced with different characters and numbers. Even the answers looked like they were written in some poor man's leet speak. I just answered the questions at random until I eventually reached the "Are you a boy or a girl?" type question. Or at least it seemed like that. There were only two choices and the respective symbols were in text. I chose boy, duh, and wondered what kind of Pokemon I'd get from the mess of questions I just answered. A selfish person like you is a Cubone, the broken text managed to announce. Normally I'd try to be a Trico or something, but Cubone was alright considering I couldn't understand the questions in the first place. From here, things started going downhill. The game skipped past the choosing of my partner and apparently the entire intro altogether, and threw me into a dungeon. This was weird to say the least. The game didn't even let me name myself. The dungeon was as badly broken as the rest of the game. Pieces of sprite work and walls were littering the place, and the enemy Pokemon were clipping into the pieces of wall and map all over. Naturally, being the cheap prick I am, I snuck upon them and took them out for experience, the walls holding them in place while I pretty much mutilated them. I should mention something else. Combat in this game was considerably easier than in the original Red Rescue Team. Enemies were constantly getting stuck in the walls and didn't react when I attacked them at all, only making distorted cries when defeated. My Cubone was a bit odd too. When I leveled up, instead of the usual happy things like, "I feel braver now," or "I feel more confident," he would say, "Mommy," and his stats would barely increase. I decided to nickname the Cubone Crybaby because of this, and I quickly realized that no matter how many floors I was going down, Crybaby never seemed to reach the bottom. All the way down, I encountered trapped Pokemon who I farmed for more experience. The dungeon itself was getting more and more glitched as I continued too, meaning more Pokemon became ensnared in glitchy tiles and made helpless to Crybaby's assault. I managed to get Crybaby to level 6 before the entire dungeon suddenly changed. The floors and walls were gray. Even the nasty washed out colors of the dungeon were replaced by the same shade of gray. I was still encountering weak Pokemon trapped in glitches, but now when defeated, their bodies glitched out as well instead of fading away. At one point I managed to defeat a Rattata who wanted to join my party. Upon saying no, which was like an ampersand and other symbols in-game, I got this message, quote, up, ampersand, bunch of random punctuation symbols. Something about this particular line of horribly broken text kinda gave me a chill. The rat-a-tat in the glitch wall didn't fade or glitch out like Crybaby's other targets. He just kinda stood in the glitch and stopped moving altogether. Attempting to talk to him got the same line of text but with a nice ellipsis, replacing the exclamation marks at the end. His icon was that of a sad or depressed character in-game too. After the rat-a-tat incident, I decided to name him Schrodinger because God knows whether his body would go away like the others or not. Something finally hit me. I'd gone up 6 levels, gone down about 20 or so floors, if not more, and Crybaby hadn't complained about one of the more annoying aspects of the regular game. He wasn't hungry. Normally, long explorations into dungeons leaves Pokemon hungry, which can be relieved with apples. If he was hungry, and thanks to the unreadable eldritch text of the game, I wouldn't even know if he was. He would have fainted by now. It was at this moment that I checked my items. Since I played the normal game enough, I was able to go through the ungodly broken menu to see what I had. I had a good number of something called formula. First off, I was blown away by readable text, in all caps of all things. Second, formula? Like, baby formula? Curious, I decided to use formula on Crybaby. Mommy. Whatever this item was, it instantly leveled up Crybaby and gave his stats the boost that the regular level ups weren't even trying to give him. I found that I could only use formula every 3 floors because Crybaby was full or something after each use, and by the time I was done, he'd gone from level 6 to level 16. This meant that I had gone 30 floors and still hadn't reached the end of this glitchy mess of a game. As if reading my mind, the endless dungeon of fun finally changed again. Grey walls with red splotches. Classy. As I wandered this new area, thoughts started popping into my head. I wonder if Schrodinger is dead yet. Where's the boss? Where's the bottom of this freaking place? Wait, 3rd floor? Did I use formula yet? Mommy. Okay, that last one was Crybaby, but at the rate enemy difficulty was suddenly increasing, and by difficulty I mean how long it took to kill the trapped bodies, I was pretty much crying for my mom as well as for something else to happen. Then, with a mix of formula and senseless killing, Crybaby reached level 28 and evolved into a Marowak. I lost count of how many floors I'd gone down, I lost count of how many Pokemon were slaughtered, but at least... Wait. How did Crybaby evolve? One of the big things about Mystery Dungeon was that the Pokemon couldn't evolve, so how in the hell did Crybaby manage to do it? With this evolution came a new level up phrase. Daddy. I was creeped out to say the least. I decided to shake it off as the bad programming of a badly broken game. At least, I should have shaken it off. Everything about Crybaby was becoming more and more disturbing the more I thought about him. He was a Marowak, one of the most depressing Pokemon ever, who was thrown into a deep pit as a Cubone and was living out his life killing trapped Pokemon and drinking baby formula. The one Pokemon he spared, Schrodinger, had more than likely starved to death, meaning the one friend he could have had was now dead. Why was I thinking about this so deeply? It was a broken copy of Red Rescue Team. It was a broken game. These weren't real people or real situations. But still, with the amount of time I was spending on Crybaby's seemingly hopeless adventure into what was probably the depths of Pokemon hell, I was getting really attached to the little sociopath. This made the end of the dungeon even more heart-wrenching. Crybaby entered a large empty room. He was completely out of formula now and was ridiculously over-leveled. The room had absolutely nothing in it. No stairs, no Pokemon, no water tiles, nothing. And then Crybaby got stuck. Walking up to the end of the room got the Marowak stuck in the same glitchy walls that once held its victims. No matter what I did, I couldn't get Crybaby to move out of the spot. All he could do was twitch and spin in place. When Crybaby was trapped, the room flooded with enemy Pokemon that Crybaby had killed during his adventure. All I could do was hold B. The Pokemon surrounded Crybaby and whittled away at his health. Sometimes broken text would pop up with empty icons. Sometimes Crybaby let out the death wails of previous Pokemon he killed for experience points, but the end result was the same. Crybaby's health hit 0 and the screen faded to black instead of warping Crybaby away. My DS then shut off on its own, making me jump and shaking me out of whatever dazed state it had put me into while playing. After checking my pants, I turned my DS back on and immediately tried to play again. If that was the game over and I didn't save the entire time, I could just restart, right? When the game turned on, the screen was just black. The only available option was a broken continue. Obviously I chose it. I had to make sure Crybaby was okay. Like hell he was. Continuing the game, I was given back control of Crybaby, who was now a nasty gray like the backgrounds of the hell he wandered for those few hours. He was stuck in the room where he died with stuck Pokemon respawning over and over for him to slaughter. His old level up line of Daddy was replaced with, "Daddy, help me!" By now I was tearing up and freaking the fuck out. The Pokemon I had raised in that endless hellhole was trapped in some sick room where he would never escape, and he was hoping that I'd help him. The broken text of the menu was replaced with, "Daddy, kill me!" and selecting that just made the DS shut off. Any attempts to replay the game always sent me to the trap room, where Crybaby was forced to re-kill his victims and beg me for death. To this day, I kept the broken cartridge with me, locked away where no one will take it. I already lost Crybaby once. I refuse to let it happen again. I understand why the cartridge said I was selfish now too, why it baited me into leading Crybaby to his own hell. Even if it was just the result of some sick programming or a bug, the adventure of Crybaby made me look at myself and see that even humans are capable of becoming horrible monsters. And that's the end. Alright, so my thoughts on this. It wasn't too bad. It did have some, it's the typical cliche thing, someone buys a haunted video game thing and they play and they get emotionally attached and the game speaks to them and they get all sad and stuff. I've seen this happen. I've read a lot of creepypastas that do this kind of thing, so it's kind of what I expected. It wasn't too bad though. It wasn't too bad. I've read a lot worse than that. So yeah, just about the Cubone, then it becomes a Marowak and it gets stuck, just killing enemies over and over again. So yeah, overall, not bad. I'll probably give it maybe, it wasn't terrible. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Yeah. I don't have an official rating scale for this. Maybe sometime in the future I might for this series, but for now, yeah, 6 out of 10 sounds good. So yeah, let's move on to the next story. Okay, so the next story that we'll be reading is called Pokemon Dark Green. So, sounds like it's the haunted, modded version of Pokemon Green, so let's find out, shall we? Does anyone remember Pokemon Green? I'm not referring to the Japanese game with Venusaur on the box, I mean the one sold in American stores with Scyther on the front. I seem to be the only one who remembers this game. I wish I had never encountered it in the first place. It all started in 1998 when Pokemon made its way to the US with Pokemon Blue and Red. I was only 7 years old. A friend of mine had let me borrow his copy of Blue, and from that moment forward, I was addicted to the series. When the time came, I was reluctant to return the game to him, but I did. For the next few days, all I could talk about was the game. As a kid, your whole world can revolve around a simple game, like Pokemon. I ended up helping my dad with yard work a few days before my birthday, and I couldn't help but talk his ear off about Pokemon. To my surprise, he said, "Get in the car, we're going to Walmart." Was he really about to purchase me my own copy of Pokemon? I was incredibly excited. This was one of the best days of my life, but it would also lead to one of my worst. We arrived at Walmart and my father told me that this would be an early birthday gift, and I could only keep it if I behaved myself and did all of my chores. I would have done anything to get my hands on a copy of Pokemon. We went inside and made our way to the video game section, and there they were, sprawled across the shelves in a beautiful fashion. Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, and Green? I had never heard of Pokemon Green, but the Scyther on the cover enticed me, and I had to have it. I grabbed a copy, checked out at the register, and went home as happy as could be. That happiness would not last. When I arrived at my house, I ran upstairs to my room, tore apart the box, and took the cartridge out. The cartridge was very odd. I assumed it would have a normal picture of a normal Scyther on it, just as the box did. Instead, the Scyther was offset to the right, almost as if it was battling something that wasn't there, and it was almost glowing. The background was black, and underneath the Pokemon logo, it did not say green version as I had expected. As unsettled as this had made me feel, I placed the cartridge into my Game Boy. I turned it on and found that instead of viewing an intro like in Blue, it immediately brought me to a screen with only one choice: continue. Where was new game? I wasn't too disappointed. My overwhelming curiosity compelled me to click on continue. I did so, and after a few moments, I found my character in what I assumed was my house. I tried to walk outside, but to my dismay, I could not exit the house. There were no stairs, and I couldn't interact with any of the objects in the room. What the heck? I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach, realizing that my cartridge might be broken, and I may not be able to play this amazing video game after all. I shut my Game Boy off, took the cartridge out, blew on it, and put it back in. It brought me to the same screen with the same option, continue. I clicked on continue and it brought me to the same room. I tried shutting it off and blowing on the cartridge a few more times before I finally became too frustrated and gave up. What the hell was going on? I told my dad about the game and he took a look at it. He was brought to the same screen in the same room and he, as well I, could not escape this room. He saw the torn up box on my floor and sighed. Well, we can't return it now. To my surprise, he then said, I'll have to get you a new one tomorrow. I became incredibly happy once more and gave my dad the biggest hug I had ever given him in my life. Though disappointed in the game I received, I was glad to have the opportunity to get another one. The next day, my father and I proceeded to Walmart. We walked over to the video game section, and a lot of the Pokemon games were gone. Half of Blue, most of Red, and all of Green had apparently been sold. There weren't even shelves anymore for where Pokemon Green had once been. Wow, I thought to myself, Green must be popular. I wasn't upset. I wasn't intending on purchasing another copy of Green anyhow, seeing as it didn't work out so well the last time. This time I grabbed Red. I had already played Blue and attempted to play Green, so this time I wanted to try something new. We went home, I ran upstairs and opened the box carefully in case we had to return this one. I took the red cartridge out, placed it in my Game Boy, and played for hours. I played Pokemon Red until the sun came up the next morning. To this day, Red is my favorite of the Pokemon games, and it's a great childhood memory. As for Green, I put it in a drawer and forgot about it until many years later. It was May of 2007 when I received a copy of Pokemon Pearl for the Nintendo DS. My dad, knowing how much I loved the series, bought me it out of the blue, knowing how happy I'd be. "Thank you so much," I exclaimed. Before my dad could even respond, I ran next door to my friend Billy's house and showed him. "What?" he said. "My mom just bought me Diamond." Apparently my dad and Billy's mom had planned this for a week, without the two of us catching on. Without another word we started to play. We felt like kids again. After many hours we stopped playing and decided to relive our childhoods and talk about the original generation of Pokemon. "My favorite will always be Pokemon Red," I stated. "Blue for me," said Billy. I recalled my first time playing Red, and then I remembered something that I hadn't thought about in years. The game I had played before Red, or at least tried to. Pokemon Green. "What about Green?" I asked Billy. "Did you ever play that one?" Billy looked confused. "Very funny." Now I was confused. "What do you mean very funny?" Billy looked displeased. "You and I both know there's no such thing as Pokemon Green." "Yes there is," I said. He now realized I wasn't joking. He was further confused. "What are you talking about?" To my understanding, up until this point, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green came out at the same time, in 1998. It soon became overshadowed by Red and Blue, and this is why I hadn't heard much about Green since my younger years. This is what I had thought, at least. According to Billy, the biggest Pokemon expert I know, Pokemon Green doesn't exist, at least not an American one with a Scyther on the front. Determined to prove Billy wrong, I invited him to my house and brought him to my room, where I would show him my copy of Pokemon Green. I dug through the drawers of my desk and eventually turned them upside down in my efforts, only to be let down. "Where is it? I distinctly remember putting it in my desk drawer when I was younger." "See?" Billy said. "Green doesn't exist. You probably dreamed it up or something." Billy went home, but I kept searching and searching, only to tear my room apart for nothing. Pokemon Green was gone. The following day, I woke up, jumped out of bed, brushed my teeth, and continued downstairs. There I found my father with a large breakfast waiting for me, the usual Sunday. We ate and indulged in some small talk about sports and the weather. I decided that maybe I should ask my dad about the game, and so I did. "That old thing?" "Oh yeah, I took it from your room soon after I bought you the new one and tried to return it without the package. They tried to lie to me and say that they didn't sell that game there. I gave them a what for and stormed out. They could have just told me they needed the box. Anyways, I think it's on my dresser upstairs. I'll go get it." As my dad made his way to his room, I thought to myself, Billy said the game doesn't exist, and Walmart said that they never carried it in their store. This was beginning to make me feel uneasy. Lo and behold, my father came down the stairs and handed me the game I had been searching for, Pokemon Green. I felt an unnerving but overwhelming need to attempt to play the game once more, so I grabbed my old Game Boy from my room and proceeded to play. I would have had Billy dissect the game with me, but he's usually at church with his family around this time. I was alone in my efforts. The game started the way it normally did, with nothing but continue to choose from. I chose so and found my character in the same room trapped. This time around, being older, I was able to pay attention to more detail. Maybe now I could find a way out. I decided to hit start and see if I hit any Pokemon. In my party was a Scyther, not so surprising. Level 25, knowing only the moves Strength, Cut, and Flash. Could a Scyther even learn all of those moves? I ventured to my items only to find nothing, and to my trainer stats only to find that I had no money, badges, and 0 hours clocked in, which is impossible. If I hadn't already crossed the threshold of weird I now had. I gave the room a good once-over to see if I could spot anything I missed as a child. To my delight, I did. There was a boulder in the room. As a kid, I probably thought it was a chair or something, considering I had never really played Pokemon before. The boulder was on the right side of the room against the wall. Naturally, I had Scyther use Strength and I was able to move it. I walked up to the spot on the wall that the boulder was in front of and hit the A button. A text box came up and it just said, Dark. Every time I hit A, it would just say, Dark. What the hell is happening? I thought for a second and remembered that Scyther knew Flash. I used it near the wall where the boulder had been. A path became lit. A seemingly miraculous exit had been found. I grew less unnerved and more excited as I walked this almost endless hallway that was just big enough for my character to squeeze through. I finally came to a literal light at the end of my tunnel, as if I was exiting a cave rather than a house. I walked through it, and where did it bring me? I ended up on the side of my house in what looked like Pallet Town. Mind you, my house looked to be of normal size, void of any protruding extensions on the side, or the hallway would have been. This was odd, but I just shrugged and kept playing. There was also no way to get back in the house, seeing as there were no doors. I walked around a bit and found that there were no doors on any of the buildings. It was a ghost town, aside from what looked like Professor Oak standing in front of his lab, where the door should have been. I tried talking to him, but a text box came up every time with an ellipsis. This made me feel on edge, but I marched on. The only logical thing left to do was head up to Viridian City, so I started towards the grass. Before I could even touch the grass, Professor Oak came up from behind me. What do you think you're doing? It's too dangerous for you and your Pokemon. A battle sequence started. Was I really going to battle Professor Oak? Sure enough, I was. The sprite for Oak was strange. He was looking down at the ground, and the expression on his face made him look as though he were troubled somehow. Oak sent out a level 5 Squirtle, and I obviously sent out my level 25 Scyther. The Squirtle sprite looked the same as Oak, troubled and looking down. I beat it quickly, and Oak said, Don't go! He then sent out, unsurprisingly, a troubled level 5 Charmander. I beat him quickly as well. Oak restated, Don't go! He then sent out none other than a level 5 and equally troubled Bulbasaur. I finished him off and the battle was over, but not before Oak came on the screen one last time to say, Don't go! Professor Oak stayed there near the grass silent as I walked off toward Viridian City. Once he was out of sight, a text box popped up, probably from Oak, with the words, I beg of you, do not leave, you won't be able to return. Unmoved by Oak's words, but unnerved by the creepiness of what I was now convinced was a hacked game, I pressed on towards Viridian City. Before I could reach my destination, the light illuminating my way disappeared. It became darker and darker until it was pitch black. Just as it became pitch black, I ran into a wild Pokemon. From this point forward, I will refer to this Pokemon simply as the Invisible. It was at level 100 and had no sprite or name. I was unable to fight it because every time I would choose one of Scyther's moves, it would say Scyther was too scared to move. I would run away from the battle and attempt to move, but I would find myself running into the Invisible again before I could even take one step. I was stuck. This happened about another 5 times before I finally decided to stay still and think. What if I use Flash? I had Scyther use Flash only to find my path to Viridian City dimly lit with a dark green tint. I continued, and the Invisible seemed to have vanished. I finally made it to Viridian City, or at least a dark green dimly lit version. As soon as I stepped foot into the town, a text box popped up that said, Viridian City, stay forever and enjoy the gym. What the fuck? Stay forever and enjoy the gym? I tried walking back from where I had came, but there was an invisible wall. I tried walking forward only to find another invisible wall at the tip of the town. Oak was right, I could neither return nor leave Viridian City. I calmed down a bit and explored the town. Much like Pallet Town, the buildings had no doors except for the gym. The only person in town was the old man who teaches you how to catch Pokemon. Avoiding the old man, whom I'd found creepy even in the normal Pokemon games, I tried the gym. It was locked. I walked all around town and inevitably I had to talk to the old man to progress. Reluctantly, I did so. Hey, so you want to catch Pokemon, do you? You want to become a Pokemon Master, defeat the powerful trainers of the Pokemon League, and enjoy an endless life of solitude? I was then given a choice, yes or no. Endless life of solitude? I chose no. Well, then stay forever and enjoy the gym. What the hell? I can't enjoy a locked gym. I spoke to him again to find the same exact script, only this time I chose yes. He said, "Well then, you are well on your way to becoming what you've always wanted to be, but first, come with me. I will introduce you to a true Pokemon master." He walked me to the gym and stood near the entrance. I tried to speak with him again, but it wouldn't work. I guess he wouldn't be introducing me to anyone. I tried the gym once more. This time I could walk in. I was slightly nervous, but thought to myself, it's only a hacked game made by some mentally unstable Game Freak worker or something. Only part of me believed that, while the rest of me believed this game was more sinister than that. I hope it wasn't the latter. I found my character inside darkness. The gym was pitch black. I had sought to use flash and the room became dimly lit with a dark green tint as I had expected. The gym was nothing like the complicated maze it was in Red. Here was just a small room. At the tip of the room was what looked like Giovanni. I walked over to him and hit the A button. He said, "Unfortunately, this is where your Pokemon journey ends. There is nothing beyond this point and you will remain in this room forever. I am sorry." What? That's it? It can't be. I walked around the room multiple times and tried leaving, but alas, I could not. I sat there disappointed. As creepy as the game was, I felt such a strong need to finish it. After a few moments, I tried speaking to Giovanni again. This time he just simply said, "I am sorry." Every time I spoke to him, that is all he would say, "I am sorry." I tried talking to him from the side, but it didn't work. I then tried talking to him from behind in the space right before the wall at the end of the room. He turned and said, "I am sorry, I truly am." A battle sequence started. Finally, productiveness. "Giovanni has no choice," came up in the text box as opposed to "Giovanni wants to fight." That was weird, but I brushed it off like every other weird thing in the game. The battle had started. "Giovanni sent out," is all the text box said, and the Pokemon he sent out was none other than the Invisible at level 100. I once again sent out Scyther against what I could only assume was a Pokemon. This time I could actually fight. Every time the Invisible used a move, it would say "used ellipsis," and nothing would happen. Every time I used Strength or Cut, it would miss. Every single time, so the battle was never going to end. Finally, I decided to use Flash. What happened next was quite unexpected. The Invisible became visible. The Pokemon was none other than a Scyther, but a darker version, much like the dark green tint cast over the town. The sprite was also strange. I can only describe it as sinister, evil looking, I guess. We fought. My moves didn't miss this time, but they did little damage to a level 100 Scyther. The dark version of my Pokemon now knew the moves of my Pokemon as well, and after using Cut twice, my Pokemon was defeated. Giovanni came on the screen and said once more, "I am sorry." I was then back in the gym even though my only Pokemon had fainted. I double checked and Scyther did in fact have 0 HP. I walked over to Giovanni and talked to him one last time. This is what he said. "You have to find a way out. He has control over us all. You will only be another victim. There is a door." His sentence was cut off by an animation. The animation was of Scyther grabbing Giovanni from behind. I stared at the still image for a while. Giovanni looked so frightened that it made me sick to my stomach. After maybe 3 minutes, the image faded out and I was back at the gym. The room was the same, but Giovanni was gone. I tried to leave, but as soon as I reached the door, another animation started. It was the same as the last one, but instead of Giovanni in Scyther's grips, it was my Scyther. Now I was scared. After a few minutes, the animation played out and my Scyther was cut to pieces. Even in the low quality of the animation, it still induced a great deal of fear into me. The animation ended and skipped to an image of my Scyther's head, looking ever so frightened as it lay there in the darkness, and a text box popped up saying nothing more than, "You failed." Here the game froze. Disturbed, I slid the cartridge out of my Game Boy and threw it at the wall. I ran downstairs and poured myself a glass of water. After calming down, I called Billy and had him come over. I needed someone else to experience this. Needless to say, I was freaked out. Billy came over rather quickly. "What is it? What happened?" I explained everything to the best of my ability and he just laughed. "Yeah, right," he said. I told him I would prove it. I ran upstairs, picked up the cartridge off of the floor, and ran back downstairs and showed him. He was unimpressed. "How long did it take you to make this?" I was a little angry at this point. "I didn't make it! It's real! Play it, you'll see!" I handed him my Game Boy and he put the cartridge in. He turned it on but nothing happened. He took the cartridge out, blew on it, but to no avail. It didn't work anymore. "I must have damaged it when I threw it at the wall." Billy laughed again. "You had me going for a second." He then left and went home, while I sat there still taking in what had just happened, just moments before Billy arrived. I thought aloud. Giovanni said there was a door. Maybe I should have looked for it instead of trying to leave. Really, my thoughts were pointless, because to this day I can't get the cartridge to work. I wish I had looked for the door and avoided seeing that animation. In a way, it traumatized me, and I haven't been the same since. As you can see, I still have the cartridge, and I scanned it using my printer, so you could see a close-up photo of what it looks like. I know it's a little blurry, but it's the best I could do. This game is real. Okay, and that's the end of that one. Again, like the previous one, this was another, haunted game cartridge that, he didn't buy it at a... Only difference was he didn't buy it at a pawn shop or anything, or a used game store. He bought it at a Walmart, but then, Walmart's like, oh, we never sold this before, we don't know what you're talking about, and, interestingly enough, it did a bit of a time skip, he couldn't do anything in the game at first, and then he comes back to it years later, and now he's able to do something because he's older, he's wiser, and he finds a way to actually play the game. He hadn't played in years, and like anything else, it turned out to be, a haunted game, and only difference was the game really didn't talk to him like it did, like in other creepypastas where the game like kind of talks to you. But yeah, it was interesting, it's kind of, this one, like I said, like I said with the previous one, I've read worse. This one, it wasn't bad, it was okay. I did like it a little bit more than the Mystery Dungeon one I just read, so... Yeah, okay. This one, I liked it a little bit more. I'm still going to give it just a 6 out of 10, though. A little higher than the Mystery Dungeon one, but still, I'd say 6 out of 10. So, yeah, let's go to the next story. Okay, the next story is one called Zombreon. And looking through it, it looks like it's one about Eevee, which... In one of my creepypasta reading episodes, I did read a few Eevee stories. Some of them were pretty good, so I'm hoping this one's good, too, because I found a lot of interesting ones about Eevee, and the Eevee illusions have always been some of my favorites, so let's find out with this one. Zombreon. A friend once told me that there were supposed to be 4 new evolutions for Eevee in Pokemon Gold and Silver. The 2 that are already in the game are Espeon, a psychic type, and Umbreon, a dark type. The other 2 were dropped from the game. These were Poison and Ghost types. I wasn't convinced that this was true, so I decided to see for myself by trying a beta version of Pokemon Gold. The beta ROM was hard to find because most of the ROMs were either normal, not beta, Japanese, or didn't work. When I finally found a working ROM, I loaded it up to search for the new Eevee evolutions. I wasn't quite sure what to do to get an Eevee to evolve into the Poison or Ghost type, so I just played the game normally and figured I would find out at some point. I eventually ended up beating the Elite Four in all of Kanto. The game was pretty much the same, other than a few different locations, dialogue, etc. Oh, and Dunsparce didn't seem to appear, but I won't complain too much about that. I really don't like Dunsparce. But by the time I beat the game, I still hadn't figured out how to evolve my Eevee. I tried leveling up at night, day, in caves, etc. After hours of trying, I finally decided to find the evolutions the easy way, by cheating. I tried to use Game Shark codes, but most of them did nothing. So I decided to ask for help online, and someone on Newgrounds said he could work on a code that should give me all the items. After a few days, he sent me back a code that I put into the Game Shark. I loaded the beta ROM, and sure enough, the code gave me every item in the game. I looked through the items, and everything was the same, except for an item called Toxic Stone. I knew this was the item I was looking for. I used it on my Eevee, and nothing happened. The game simply told me it has no effect. I tried over and over, but nothing. I was pissed. Was this all I got after I went through this damn game? There had to be something that I did wrong, so I thought maybe NPCs could help me out. I got the typical text from the NPCs. Man, that Team Rocket sure is persistent. I love my Jigglypuff. Have you visited the radio tower in the Kanto region? But one NPC told me something that stood out. Did you know there's a stone that can evolve a Pokemon after it has fainted? This was where I went wrong. I had to use the Toxic Stone on my Eevee after it fainted. At least I hope so. My Eevee didn't take any time to be defeated, especially since it was around level 40, and I was in a level 60 area. After it was defeated, I went into my bag and used the stone on my fainted Eevee. What's this? Eevee is evolving. Yes, finally! Eevee has evolved into Zombreon. This was not what I was thinking. Zombreon looked like a normal Eevee but was green colored and parts of it were missing. Also, its cry was just a lower version of Eevee's. Oh, and once it evolved, it learned an attack called Zombite. But this was all I worked for? A recolored Eevee? Come on! I calmed down a bit and decided to test it out in the tall grass near New Barktown. A wild Sentret appeared and I threw out Zombreon. I figured it would be pointless to use a move I have used a million times like Tackle or Flash, so I used Zombite instead. The attack animation was odd. It looked like Bite, but with two poison symbols flashing near the teeth. The attack was a one-hit KO according to the text box. But what was strange now was that the game asked me if I would like to nickname Sentret, and it told me Sentret was sent to the PC. I didn't use a Pokeball, so why did the game say I caught the Sentret? I rushed over to the PC and checked for the Sentret. It was not a normal Sentret anymore. It was now green, a poison type, and it had the move Zombite. Wait, I know what's going on. Every time I use the attack Zombite, which I figure means Zombie Bite, the enemy Pokemon will get infected joining my team. This was pretty obvious considering Zombreon was basically Zombie plus Eon. I wondered, what would happen if I infected a trainer's Pokemon? I used Fly to go to one of the routes in Kanto that I skipped most of, and ran to a trainer. The battle started, the opposing trainer threw out a Kadabra, and I immediately chose Zombite. It was a one-hit KO. But rather than throwing out the next Pokemon, the opposing trainer just came out and said, "What did you do to my Pokemon?" The battle was won, and I received the experience and money. After the battle, the trainer was simply gone. Just gone. In fact, none of the other trainers were there either. This began to creep me out a little bit. I walked around the area to look for another trainer but found nothing. When I walked into the grass, a wild Kadabra appeared. Although this wasn't a normal Kadabra, it was green and zombie-like, like the Sentret was. And I didn't even have to fight it, it just lost all of its health and the game told me I caught it. I began to get a little creeped out, so I began to head back to town when another wild Pokemon appeared. It was a normal-looking Raticate. I didn't want to fight it, so I pressed run. It didn't work. Zombreon is staring at the foe hungrily, the game told me. Then the Raticate attacked Zombreon with Bite, but after the attack animation played, the game said Zombreon countered the attack with Zombite, and the Zombite animation played, causing the Raticate to lose all its HP and join my team. I wanted to get out of this area immediately, so I went into my team to use Fly. I wasn't expecting what I saw. All of my Pokemon were green and zombified, and all of them now knew Zombite. I made my Lugia use Fly and take me to Saffron City. When I got there, all the NPCs were there, which helped me to relax a little. I decided to go into the Pokemon Center to check the PC, and when I did, the game let out an ear-splitting beep that made me jump a little. In front of the center's counter was the trainer with the Kadabra that I had defeated earlier. A text box came up. That's the man that hurt my Kadabra! Then the trainer ran to the corner of the Pokemon Center. A man sitting on one of the seats walked up to me and said, "Don't worry, I'll stop him." Then I was forced to battle him. He sent out an Arcanine and I sent out Zombreon. I tried to use Tackle and it worked, but after the animation finished, the game said, Zombreon used Tackle followed by Zombite. The battle ended, and when the game went back to the Pokemon Center, a greenish sprite of the Arcanine stood next to the man. "What happened to my Arcanine? What are you?" the man said before running out of the Pokemon Center. The Arcanine walked up to me. The game told me that Arcanine was sent to the PC box, and then the Arcanine disappeared. This was starting to get kind of creepy. I tried talking to the trainer in the corner, but all he would say was, "Please, no more." I tried talking to the nurse, but all she would say was, "Get out of my Pokemon Center!" I checked the PC, and sure enough, I had zombie versions of all the Pokemon from earlier. When I backed out of the PC, I noticed a new option on the PC screen called Release All. I tried pressing it, but it told me not enough Zom Pokemon. Darn. I walked out of the center, and the speakers on my computer were filled with a loud barrage of high and low-pitched beeps, and all the NPCs outside of the center ran towards the exits of the city. I tried to talk to one of them, but they were moving too fast to do anything. When I walked out of the town, there was no trainers around. I figured if I went to a different town, everything would be normal, so I made my Lugia fly to Goldenrod City. When I landed there, there were no NPCs here either, and the music wasn't playing. I tried walking into a building, but the game told me the door is locked. I tried a few other buildings, but those were locked too, so I went to the Pokemon Center. The door opened as usual, and I went inside. Nobody was inside of it, but I noticed something new. There was, what appeared to be, a radio on the counter. When I interacted with it, a text box came up. Beware of strange Pokemon. Trainers from the Kanto region have been reporting strange green Pokemon attacking and infecting other Pokemon and trainers. Remain indoors and avoid all contact with strange Pokemon and people. Followed by, I'm so lonely. I figured there was nothing to do down here, so I walked to the second floor. On the second floor, there were a bunch of NPCs standing still facing the stairs. Once I got to the top of the stairs, a loud beep played and a text box said, "Get out of here! You aren't normal!" A trainer standing in front of the crowd ran up to me and a battle started. The opposing trainer sent out a Ditto and I sent out Zombreon. I tried using Flash, but instead the game said Zombreon spat poison at Ditto, and Ditto was defeated. After the battle, the man backed up into the crowd. Suddenly, Zombreon walked out, and the game said Zombreon cannot wait any longer, and Zombreon ran into the crowd, touching every trainer and Pokemon. When it touched Pokemon, they would turn green, but when it touched trainers, the game let out the loud beep, then the trainer would disappear. Once all the trainers were gone and all the Pokemon were infected, a text box said Jigglypuff, Abra, Ditto, and Clefairy were sent to the PC. Then the Pokemon disappeared. I checked my trainer card because I remember the trainer from earlier saying that I wasn't normal. Sure enough, my trainer was zombified too. I felt kinda sick. Would Game Freak really do something like this? I shook off the feeling and tried to fly to a different town, but the game told me Lugia is too weak to fly. Great. I went back into the center to get a new flying Pokemon from the PC, but when I looked inside, all of the Pokemon in the PC were infected. I tried taking out my Pidgeotto, but pressing the withdraw button would just play a buzz sound that usually plays when you aren't allowed to do something. I couldn't move Pokemon either, so there was only one thing left to do. I saved the game first, then I pressed the release all button. The game asked, would you like to release all Zom Pokemon? Yes. All Zom Pokemon have been released. I checked the box and now all my Pokemon in the PC were gone. I was confused. What is the purpose of an option like this? I walked outside and I got quite the surprise. Parts of buildings were on fire, windows were boarded up, and NPCs were running from green Pokemon. I couldn't interact with the Pokemon or trainers, so I decided to walk out of town. The area outside of town was similar in a way. A few trees were on fire, and there were gray particles moving in front of the screen, which made it look like the screen was all smoky. Walking into tall grass didn't cause wild Pokemon to appear, but I could talk to the small amounts of NPCs that were standing around. They would say things like, I had to hit my poor Pikachu with a stick, he just wouldn't stop trying to bite me. Who started this? I want this all to end. I want to go home to my family. I eventually walked to Violet City, then to Cherry Grove City, and finally to New Barktown. This was the only place that was normal, sort of. The trainers that walked around outside of the buildings weren't there anymore. I went into the laboratory to see if it was empty too. It wasn't. Inside was a single professor. Once I took a step forward, an exclamation point appeared above his head, and he walked up to me. I finally finished it! A gene that protects my Pokemon from that poison stuff that has caused all the Pokemon to turn strange. This is where it all began, and this is where it will all end, he said, causing a battle to start. The game said that Professor Elm would like to battle. He sent out a level 86 Feraligatr. I threw out Zombreon. I knew Zombreon was too weak to handle it, so I switched to Lugia. When I tried to use any attack other than Zombite, Lugia would end up using it anyways. And when Lugia did, I would get a message that said it has no effect on Feraligatr. After this, the opposing Feraligatr used an attack called Cure that was super effective and defeated Lugia right away. My next Pokemon was my Typhlosion, but the battle was almost the same as it went for Lugia. I tried using Flamethrower, but instead Typhlosion used Zombite, and it was instantly defeated by Cure. The battle went on like this until I got to Zombreon. I pressed Zombite at this point because I knew it was coming. It didn't work, and Feraligatr used Cure. Zombreon was brought down to 1 HP. The game said Zombreon refuses to give up. Zombreon used Struggle. Feraligatr was instantly defeated, and Zombreon was defeated by the recoil. Professor Elm came up and said, No! 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 And the battle ended. After the battle, Elm took a step back and said, I lost. It's over. It's all over. I wanted to end this pointless game right now, and ran out of the lab. After a few seconds, a text box said, You hear a loud bang in the distance. I think I know what that meant. I went outside and a text box came up. Why did this have to happen? I didn't understand who said this since there was nobody around. I thought maybe someone was in my character's house, so I headed there. Inside was my mom. She was sitting on a chair in the house as usual, so I tried interacting with her. She definitely wasn't doing anything usual. It's Mom. She's not moving. This text actually made me feel sad, but I didn't expect the screen to cut to black after the text box closed. The screen faded from black into the opening screen where you get to enter your character's name, but my character just stood there and the text below said, "All of this is my fault. All those poor people. My mom. Evie." But was it really my fault? My character glared at the screen for a split second and cut to black. Then the game went straight to the credits. Nothing was different. All the Pokemon were there as usual. Once the credits were over, the emulator froze. Now whenever I try to load the beta ROM, the emulator just freezes. I realized that this was only one of the two evolutions for Eevee. The ghost one was probably in Pokemon Silver. I can't imagine what would happen with this evolution of Eevee, and I don't want to know. And that's the end of that one. Okay. That one was good. I actually really enjoyed that one. It was... I've said this before, I sound like a broken record, but it was, typical cliche, haunted, Well, this one really wasn't a haunted game part. It was more like oh, this is something that was in a beta that they decided to take out because it was scary. It was going to scare people. So, it's kind of similar, but not quite. But, it can be put in the same category, I'm pretty sure. But... That was pretty interesting. Maybe I could be being biased because I do like Eevee and the evolutions. They're kind of some of my favorite Pokemon, but I really enjoyed that one because I've always said eventually there needs to be an evolution of every type. I don't know how they're going to do it if they even are going to do it, but I think that should be a thing. It's called the evolution of Pokemon, so I think there should be an evolution of every type. Poison and Ghost, man. But man, having it evolve when it's fainted, and then it becomes a zombie, and then it's just infecting every Pokemon it battles with that Zombite, and then even the trainer becomes infected, and I'm guessing the people are dying, except the trainer himself, and then the trainer breaks the fourth wall, glares at the player, and the game ends, and yeah. Kind of blue balled us, though we didn't get to see what the ghost type did. I wonder... That one would probably be similar. Maybe there's maybe a ghost stone or something, and it also has to faint. And then you use the ghost stone on it, and it becomes, what are you going to call this? That one was called Zombreon, so maybe, I don't know, Ghosteon? No, that's stupid, but something to do with the ghost, Spectrumion, I don't know. Like a like Spectre, maybe I'm using that wrong, but... Something like that, and then maybe it would have, maybe not bite, because zombies bite. I guess with the ghost one, maybe it would have something, maybe like spirit train or something, where it takes their spirit, or their soul out of their body, like soul drain, maybe something like that. It would have something like that, yeah. And then, it does that, all the Pokemon were, now you have a team of, ghost Pokemon, well... They probably want to call it that because there's already a ghost type. So this was zombie Pokemon. So maybe... Ooh, what about spirit Pokemon? Yeah, maybe spirit Pokemon. So you could have spirit Pokemon is taking the spirits, the souls of Pokemon, takes souls from people, and then it does the same thing to your mom, and then the player ends up becoming... I don't know, maybe he becomes white like a ghost or something. So yeah. I like that one though. This one was pretty good. So I'm giving this one... Let me see. I'll give it a... Should I give it an 8 or a 9? I'll give it a 9 out of 10, yeah. I actually really enjoyed reading that one. So, yeah. It gave me what I've always wanted. Like I said, more evolutions, This one, maybe an idea for a poison type. But, I mean, they're never going to do anything like this. This is way too dark. I'm just saying, Kind of creative too, you have to use the stone on it when it's fainted to evolve it. I already said that, but yeah, I like that. So 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. I saw one comment that said the ghost one should be named Irion. That one could work. But anyway, this will do for episode 1, the premiere episode of my new Read and Rate series. So yeah, hope you guys like that. I was thinking of whether or not to do, give my thoughts while I'm reading it. But I decided for this one, I wanted to give my thoughts after I read this story because I don't want to keep interrupting. Because I don't know, I think that can be kind of distracting. But just let me know what you guys think if you want me to do that or not. I kind of want to stick to the style of, only giving my thoughts after I read the story, not interrupting every so often to give my thoughts on this particular thing. But let me know what you guys think. So, yeah. And I do plan to do this. I may try and do this for other stories too besides creepypastas. I might do maybe some things on Reddit, maybe some other short stories I can Google up and find, maybe some funny stories, maybe some cringy ones, crappy ones, that kind of stuff. So yeah, with this series I can expand on what I read. So that's why I also wanted to do this. So yeah. But yeah, I've got a big list of stories that I can read from, so I'm going to keep doing this, so expect more to come. And just let me know if you like what I'm doing. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, check out my Patreon, all that good social media jazz, And I will see you guys next time. Remember to wash your hands, keep your distance, and most important, have a great day. Bye.